Okay, this video is a little long. There's a lot of questions. We're doing all the graphing questions from 2013's Applied EQAO. Alright, and this question is asking us which scatter plot has no trend, which means it's asking us which one has no trend line. And you can kind of see that these three have a trend line. Draw this one. Let's see, in the middle does not. This question is asking us to find which of the four relationships are linear. And when you're looking for a linear, you're looking for a straight line. So it could be this way, or this way. So I know that this right here is linear. This is not. When it comes to tables, I'm looking for first differences that are the same. If I look at my x values and they're all increasing by the same amount, so 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, I can come over here and I can find my first differences. Because I got different answers, I know this is not linear. And here again, I look at my x values. They're all increasing by the same amount. Now I just need to check if my y values are increasing by the same amount. Again, I could stop right there. I know my first differences are not all going to be the same. And I know that my answer is A. So a constant rate of change is the same as saying which one is linear. Again, I'm looking for a straight line, and that would be C. So it's important to know that B is not constant. Even though it is a straight line, two straight lines, they're going in different directions. A question like this needs you to understand what the graph is saying. So it's saying each of the 3 points on the grid below gives information about the altitude of a hot air balloon at a certain time. If the relationship between the altitude and time is linear, what was the altitude of the balloon at 4 minutes? So, one word, linear, you know it's a constant rate of change, so you know it's a straight line. You need to understand how to read time and altitude. So it gives us 2 points. At 8 minutes, my altitude is 500. At 6 minutes, my altitude is 1,000. This means in 2 minutes, okay, so that means at 4 minutes, the altitude will be what the altitude was at 6 minutes plus 500 meters. Okay, and I can also do this just by looking at the graph. I can look at the rate of change from 6 to 8, and I could see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks decrease in 2 minutes, which means if I went another 2 minutes, I would have to go up 5 blocks. This question again, you need to be able to understand the graph and what it's asking and telling you to do. So Dakota and Jamie have part-time jobs. The graphs below represent the relationship between earnings and the time of each of them works. So Dakota's earnings, what can we see? We could see Dakota her wages, her earnings start at $0 for 0 minutes. And Jamie's earnings start at $30 for 0 minutes. Now I'm going to look at my graphs and my options. So partial variation, I want to know which one represents partial variation and what is the initial value of the relationship. So those are the two things I'm looking for. Partial variation means it does not start at 0. If I had an equation, b does not equal 0. Okay, b is the initial value. It's a little ugly. I'm going to rewrite this a little bit. Okay, which is our y-intercept. Very important to know this equation and what it means. So looking at my 4 answers, I already know that Jamie doesn't start at 0. At 0 minutes, he gets $30. So I know it's not A or B. The other part of the question is to correctly identify what the y-intercept is, and I could see, if I zoom in, that it is 30. Which means the answer is C. Okay, so if you're having troubles or you don't understand how to read the graph, this question is going to be pretty much impossible to solve. So try to take a minute to understand what's happening in the graph and what the graph is trying to tell you. Oscar's riding his bike to the beach. He gets there, he forgets his sunscreen, and he goes back home. So you could see there's 3 segments. And you have to know what each one is telling you or what it means. This is a quick summary. I'm going to try to... So here's what we're looking at. And you can see that there's a point here, and a significant point here, here, and here. So what's this telling us? This is telling us Oscar traveled 2.5 kilometers, and he did it in 10 minutes. Over here, he stayed at the same spot because the distance didn't change, and he did that for 15 minutes. And this is when he starts to head home, and it's the same distance, 2.5 kilometers, again in 15 minutes. If I wanted to write the points, I can do that. So here I could see x always goes first. It's 10, 2.5. Right here would be 25, 2.5, 40, 0, and 0, 0. So A, telling us the beach is 10 kilometers from Oscar's home. the furthest he travels, you can see it right here, is 2.5. So that's obviously not true. B saying his speed riding to the beach is 0.25 kilometers a minute. So we can calculate it, and what it's asking for is the slope of this line right here. So I'm looking at rise over run, and you can do it whichever way you think is easier. You could look at the rise, 2.5 kilometers, and the run is 10. Okay, so you're kind of drawing a line here and here. Another way you can do it is rise over run. So m is equal to y2, take away y1, x2, take away x1, and we have our points. So we have 2.5, take away 0, 10, take away 0. Okay, so we know B is the one that's true. So data is about the total monthly cost to rent video games from 2 online game sites are shown, and they want to know which one is true. So the first one is, it costs more to rent from Sir Game-A-Lots after 6 games. So here's 6 games, and you can see that's not true because Sir Game-A-Lot will be less than Mighty Games because Mighty Games is constantly increasing. It costs less to rent from Mighty Gamers after 30 games. So you know that's also not true because Mighty Games will be increasing as it hits 30. It costs the same amount to rent 6 games from 2 sites. So you go to 6, and you can tell that's the point of intersection for both lines. So you know this is true. This question is saying water is leaking from a bottle, and Julia draws a line on the graph to model the relationship between the volume of the water remaining and time. Determine which of the 3 points whether each of the 3 points shown on the line is possible, and write an interpretation. So A, right here, A you could see is 0, 500. So what that's telling us, at 0 minutes there's 500 milliliters of water, which is possible. If you had a bottle of water, before it starts to leak, there could be 500 milliliters in there. Okay, so B would be 2 and 200. So it's saying at 2 minutes there was 200 milliliters remaining, which can also be true. And C is right here. It's at 4 and negative 100. And what the graph is trying to tell us is at 4 minutes there was negative 100 milliliters. That's not possible because you can't lose more water than you started from in your bottle. So I'm going to circle no. Okay, so that could be your final answer right there. This question can be a little tricky depending on if you can interpret the graph. I've seen a lot of people make a mistake with this part right here. And it's basically just slope, so we'll go through that as well. So my initial value is, what is my value when x is 0? And I could see that right here. It's $3, so you know that it's money. And what can that mean? Well, you're going into the fair, so that basically means if you're not taking any rides, you're paying $3. So that could be your admission fee to get into the fair. So that's not too bad. You just have to know how to interpret the situation. Rate of change gets a little tricky at times because you need to know that this means they're looking for the slope. Okay, so you can find 2 points, any 2 points, if you want to do it with an equation. So I know my slope is y2, take away y1, x2, take away x1. 1 point for me. I will use 2 and 4. Make sure you put the bottom number as the x. And my second point for me, I will use 0 and 3. So make sure this is x. Okay. I'll actually turn that around so it's easier. And it doesn't matter which one you put as x1 or y1 or x2 or y2 because you'll get the same answer. This is just look easier. 4 take away 3, make sure you put the y value here. And 2 take away 0 will give me 1 over 2, which is $0.5. So what does that mean? It's important to know that you just calculated. Up here was the money, and this right here was the number of rides. So you calculated the money per ride. And I've seen people come up with answers such as for rate of change like 1 or 2. Just make sure you put your y values over your x values when you're calculating your slope. Okay, so another way you can solve for the slope, if you want to just focus on, would be to just take the rise and the run directly off the graph. So if I look here, you can draw your triangle, and you could see that this right here, this is your rise, and this is your run. And as long as you get your scale correct, you should be able to do this correctly. Okay, so my rise goes from 4 to 5 is 1, and my run goes from 2 to 4 is 2. Okay, so that's simple as long as you pay attention to your scale. So the total cost of horseback riding at a horse ranch is made up of a fixed fee and a cost per hour. So this alone, a fixed fee and a cost per hour, should let you know that you need a b for the y-intercept and m for the slope when you make your equation. Write an equation that relates the total cost of the ride to the time spent riding. This one is a little tricky to see where to begin, but you need to know when you make an equation, every time it's asking for an equation, this is what you want. Y equals mx plus b. So you know you need to find the slope. So if you need to graph this, it's asking you to, you could. You just need to zoom in. So 2 and 50. So right here. 4 and 80. Right here. And 7 and 125. Right, should be a little lower, but that's as accurate as my pen can get. So this is what we have now. So you can do this again. You can either look at the graph and look for your rise over run by counting the units and the scale, or you can use the points. So it's important to know this is x and this is y. and that will give you your cost per hour. You still need to find your fixed fee. Okay, if you're really accurate, you can draw a line and see where your line goes, but you might need to confirm the math regardless because you don't know how accurate your answer will be after that. So I'm going to do my 2 points. 1 point will be 2 and 50, and the other will be 4 and 80. So I'm going to do, this will be x1, y1, x2, y2. So 80 take away 50, 4 take away 2, will give me 30 over 2, will give me 15. So my M is 15. That's my slope. I know it costs $15 an hour to ride a horse. I just need to find out what that base fee is. Okay, so if it cost me $15 an hour to ride a horse, but for 2 hours I paid $50, I need to find out what the additional fee is. Okay, so this, you can probably do this in your head. I'm just going to show you an equation just so you can understand the math behind it. So that's this equation right here with my y value inputted, and this is my m, and my x will equal 2, and I'm going to solve for b. I could see that my b will be 20. So this right here is what I need to answer my question. So y would be equal to 15x plus 20. There's one more step. Over here, they've already assigned you your variables. So my answer will be c is equal to 15t plus 20. Okay.